aware yesterday or last week when you did the exercises of how limited your consciousness is? All right? That we begin to understand that we get so busy with all kinds of other things that we don't experience our lives. And with those exercises, you probably got a little bit of an indication that you're a lot less conscious than you could be. The thing that gets in the way of you being conscious is you. We say here, and kind of make a joke about that the single most limiting thing that you've ever done to yourself is create a personality. And that's who you think you are. And you get so caught and so attached to that personality that it begins to, little by little, start to control your reality. And because we are human, when we look at things through the prism of that personality, we have a tendency to see the things that confirm our reality. So if you like somebody, you see the good things that they do, and if you don't like somebody, you see the bad things that they do. And this is not something, by the way, that is a conscious process, all right? You think that you are being, perfectly balanced in terms of what you see, because, again, your personality is telling you that this is the way it is. This is the truth. This is how life is, because our personality is made up of our rights and wrongs, our goods and bads, our shoulds and shouldn'ts, our likes and dislikes, our fairs and justs, and all of those kinds of things. We actually constructed a personality for ourselves so that we would have, number one, consistency, because we want to be the same tomorrow as we are today, right? And we like that in ourselves. And we like that in our external environment and the people that we hang around with. We want them to be the same, because after all, if they weren't the same, wow, then they wouldn't be our friends. And we get all caught in this stuff of the illusion that nothing is going to change. We look at people and we want them to fit our category of who we think they are. Right? It's called reification. We make them a thing rather than seeing them as a process. This is not something you're conscious of. This is something that your personality, all right, does. It gets in the way of you being conscious because you made your personality so that you would have continuity, and then you want your external environment to have continuity too. It's our personality automatically, and understand this about yourself because it's pretty important. Right? Your personality automatically resists change. That's what it's for. I guess that's your continuity. I don't want to be any different. And so if anybody tells me I need to change my behaviors, and that's the first thing about personality. The second is that we created our personality because existentially we're afraid of being alone. And so we created a me, all right, an I. And so this I, like, we kind of give control to, all right, this is who I am, and we feel safer when we have that sense of I, that somebody's in control here, and we have this ability to be me, which actually creates something that is separate from my external environment. It's not connected, it's separate, and that separation, that self, that's me. Now, the problem is that all of this is kind of created with thought. It is in reality an illusion. But it's one that we believe in. All right, we strongly believe in ourselves. There is a entity here that is us. What our challenge for you is that personality that you've created, and all of you, by the way, created great personalities. In the personality contest, you won, okay? Because otherwise, you wouldn't be here. You've got a very functional personality. You're probably within the top 1% of the population of the planet. That's how good your personality is, all right? but it still suffers from all of the issues of a personality. It becomes hugely limiting. You are much, much more than who you think you are. You have much, much more to give, much, much more to add, much greater ability to impact your world, all right, than you allow yourself to. Because, again, you've been constrained by who you think you are. Now, one of the problems is because what happens is that personality begins to manifest itself in an unconscious way, so we don't actually see it. It becomes stronger and stronger over time, all right? And so our habitual patterns, our ways of behaving, our ways of thinking, and and our mental conditioning, all right, actually becomes more and more rigid over time, because we have a tendency only to practice those things that we identify with. And so the neurobiology of our brain becomes tracked in a particular way. And the more we think and the more we feel and the more that we program that in terms of our brain, kind of the more used to we are thinking and feeling and behaving in a particular way. What happens to us then is that, and this is for most people, is that our personality begins to narrow as we get older, okay? And we then have less tolerance for change, less tolerance for new things. And we begin to kind of get things closed in. We become a little bit myopic in terms of what we see. We can't adjust as rapidly to an external environment that has a lot of change in it. So old people are not very good at picking up new technological things. This is most old people. I hope it's not going to be you. And eventually what happens with the brain is that this actually, you can get so calcified that it becomes Alzheimer's disease, where you have fewer and fewer options in terms of how you think and the neurobiology of your brain and what happens. We know this because we know that the brain actually, if we don't create the plasticity and make it more fluid and flexible by changing our mind, by thinking in different ways, by creating new things that we've never done before, by being able to expand our consciousness so that we get beyond the narrow frame of personality that we built for ourselves and probably quit building at about the age of 26 or 27 if you're the average person, and then we're just kind of stuck with that. And we're not just stuck with that, we're stuck with something that gets more and more narrow over a period of time. That personality gets in the way of you being able to do things because you begin to define yourself in a process of I can't. Let me give you an example. Oftentimes I'll give a speech to maybe 50 people and I might ask the question, how many of you in here can run a marathon? Raise your hand. And out of 50 people, usually there's 2 or 3, maybe 4 that will raise their hand and say, yeah, I can run a marathon, right? The reality is that all 50 people in that room, at least most of the people in that room, can run a marathon. There are old people, people older than me, that can run a marathon. There are people with no legs that run marathons. There are people with cancer that run marathons. There are people in wheelchairs that do a marathon in wheelchairs, okay? But what we do is, in our mind, we don't label ourselves as I could run a marathon, but I choose not to do the training. Instead, what we do is we can't, all right? I can't run a marathon. We program limitations into our personality. Oh, I can't dance, I can't sing, I can't. And what we find is that the personality is created more with negatives, more with can'ts than it is with cans, all right? We want to kick the sides of that thing. We want to make it a lot bigger. We think you can do, okay, you can do much more than you think you can. In fact, we don't even have to think. We know, and know is different than thinking, okay? That's a feeling. And we need to bring in, because our personality cuts us off from the feeling level. Right? It's programmed, it's rational, it's logical, it's all of this stuff. And what we want to do is get a better level of experience so that we kick the sides, transcend that personality. And we're going to give you a lot of tools for doing that this week. We're going to look at personality. We're going to see its limitations. We're going to work with how we bust out of this shell that we've got. How we become comfortable with not knowing. Okay? It's all about bringing a new kind of vision into your life. Looking at things differently. Seeing that this connection that you have with you is actually counterproductive to a fulfilled life and a real connected experience of who you are.